delighted to welcome James Lewis from the North Jersey Historic and Genealogy Society. Did I get that right?
Close.
Not quite.
That's okay, Lana.
But yeah, he's graciously agreed to come and talk to us about, researching genealogy using the resources both online and in paper. And I'm going to give it all to James right now. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Lana. I am the department head of the North Jersey History and Genealogy Center at the Morristown and Morris Township Library. The department is located in the lower level of the library. I've been the department head since April 2013. Prior to that, I worked at the Charles F. Cummings New Jersey Information Center at Newark Public Library for some years, and before that at the New Jersey Historical Society, also in Newark. And I've had a lifelong interest and been accustomed to listening to family members discuss their family history. So I find this a very interesting job and love helping people. So with that, I'd like to start my PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
Bear with me here.
Yep.
Okay. So in normal times, our hours, and hopefully we'll get back to those soon. Here are the hours of the department. In the fall, winter, and spring, Monday to Thursday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Fridays, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturdays, 9:30 to 5 p.m. Sundays, 1 to 5 p.m. in the summer. The weekday and Sunday hours are the same. Saturdays are 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Now, when you're doing your family history, it's always good to, if you can, talk to the family genealogist and your elders before they're gone. I hear from so many genealogists that, gee, I wish I talked to my aunt, my mom about the family history, but I didn't have time. I didn't get to do it. So,
James?
if you can, talk to your elders.
James?
Yes.
James, you know what? If you click on slideshow, we can see the whole thing. You're up here. It says slideshow.
Yeah.
Up on the top bar right there.
Right.
That one, and then just from current slide.
There we go. Sorry.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That's great.
All right. So here I have an example, and then you should be recording your family members and your ancestors. Here's a family group record sheet from Ancestry. And I'm sorry, I clicked too far ahead. Here's a different way to do it, an ancestral chart. There are many other ways to do it, but here are two examples that I think work easier. There are family fan charts and on and on. But pick whatever you're comfortable working with. Here are two examples. So what we suggest to everyone that uses our department is to search our online card catalog prior to visiting us. And I'm gonna, bear with me here because I'm not used to having this option. I'm gonna switch to our card catalog. I think most of you are probably familiar with the main catalog. Bear with me. But I want to show you how to best search our department. So if you should be able to see, if I'm correct, the main page of the main catalog right now. And if you click on search options, click on advanced. And then in the more power search options towards the bottom of the screen, click on it, and then select the Morristown and Morris Township Library.
James?
Yes.
We are actually not seeing what you are doing right now. I think you have
Okay.
to click on that. I think you have to switch the screen.
Right. Bear with me here.
Right now, we're just seeing your PowerPoint, which is very nice. There you go. Yes,
All
that's,
right.
yeah, all right.
Perfect.
Okay. Let me back up here. I
Okay,
apologize.
thank you. No, this is great.
So I think most of you are probably familiar, as I said, with the main catalog system and the main page. You see the search options, click on it and click advanced. And then scroll down towards the bottom. You'll see more power search options. Click on it and select under libraries, select the Morristown and Morris Township Library. And then go down under collections, click on local history, then click set search limits. And then you put in your search here. So I'm going to put in, supposing you're interested in ancestors that went to were Presbyterians. You're looking for Presbyterian church records in New Jersey. So you type in Presbyterian church in the keyword line, and you see all the types of Presbyterian church records we have in our catalog. Or some, I should say some of the Presbyterian church records. Then you click go and scroll down and you see Presbyterian Church of Morristown records 1791 to 1983. And that this is a manuscript collection and we have 4 boxes of materials. And there's more records. So supposing you were to want to look at these, you'd click on the link here. And then you go down to the bottom and see the call number. And you'd note the call number. And then you'd come in, and when you come in and visit us, you'd fill out a call slip and write the call number in, and then we can go retrieve that collection. So you can also do that when you're at the library in the department, but it does help save you time if you're worried about parking or you have time constraints. Does anybody have any questions about searching the catalog for our records? I'm going to go back to I'm attempting to go back to my PowerPoint presentation here. So when you walk into come down to the lower level of the library, you walk through the double doors into our department. Here's our reference desk. You'd have to sign in a sign-in sheet. We currently have a big sheet of plexiglass. You'd have to pass the paper underneath the glass after you fill it in. We do not share your information with anyone. This helps us keep track of who's visited, and supposing they leave something. I've had this happen. Somebody left their hat, I was able to track them down and get a hold of them, and they came back and got their hat. And it also helps with statistics for the state, who like to see that we're helping people that come from where people are coming from, and that we're helping people from greater than 20 miles. So here's a photo to the left here of our reading room. We have several tables to work at, the old-fashioned card catalog. There's our book stacks. That is roughly 15 to 20% of the books in our collections. I will talk more on the books later. And here's our old-fashioned card catalog. I know I just told you that you should check our online card catalog before coming, but you should also check when you're here. Just a minute, please. I'm sorry. All that heavy rain. Okay, so here's our old-fashioned card catalog. The blue cards are subject cards. The orange cards are map cards. We have maps from across the country, but many more from New Jersey, especially Morris County, Sussex County, and Warren County. Yes. And then the white cards here are author and title cards. So again, please check there. Most of our items are in the online card catalog, but not all of them. So we have books on historic preservation, how to preserve your home, and historic houses. Then in the next row right here, we have family histories from A to Z from across the state. We have books on the Mayflower families and their descendants, books on the original 13 states, a great Civil War book collection. But then we also have books on New Jersey, and those are kept in behind closed stacks, and we have books on the entire state. Here we have computers where you can access the databases that we provide. I will discuss them further. We have 4 public access computers. So here is our the department's web page. And I'll talk more on that later, but you can see the North Jersey History and Genealogy Center and lists the research sources and databases that we offer. There's also how to do your genealogy, what we call, librarians call a pathfinder or a guide to how to do your genealogy. Here are the subscription and online databases that we offer. Ancestry Library Edition, the Social Security Death Index, the Daughters of the American Revolution, Eastern European Genealogy Database. Now, some of these are free databases that are accessible to anyone on the World Wide Web, including the Eastern European Genealogy Database, the Ellis Island Archives. Find My Past is a subscription database, as is Fold 3, Jewish Data, Heritage Quest, which Boonton Homes Library provides access to their card holders. The New Jersey Death Index and the Soldiers and Sailors Database, the latter two are both available on the web. The Soldiers and Sailors Database is regarding Union and Confederate soldiers and sailors. I will talk more on that later. One of the databases that we provide access to is American Ancestors. This is a database hosted by the New England Historic and Genealogical Society and is a great resource for people searching for their New England ancestors. So on American Ancestors, I suggest using the advanced search. I did a search for Thomas Stanton from 16, you can limit the search to a range of years, and their range is roughly 50 years. So here you see 1650 to 1700, and you can also limit the search by the geographical region. So I knew that this Thomas Stanton was in Stonington, Connecticut, so I put his location in there. And up came 10 results. From a number of subjects that you would be able to click on and view the result. And you could print it or save it, I believe. And here's an example. They've got digitized books, and this is a page from one of the books that listed Thomas Stanton. We also provide access to Ancestry Library Edition. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Ancestry Library Edition. It's a great genealogical database that has a wide variety of resources: census records, birth, marriage, and death records, immigration and travel records, and census records from the U.S., the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and several other countries across the globe. Another good thing to keep in mind when you're searching genealogical databases is they are continuously adding to them. So just because you don't find something once doesn't mean you shouldn't try again later. So here's Heritage Quest Online. This is something that Boonton Homes Library provides its patrons. It is a ProQuest and Ancestry product. Here you can see you can search the census. You can search over 28,000 family and local histories books. You can search the periodicals, so journals and magazine articles dating from 1800 to 2009 when this 2.3 million genealogy and local history articles. So there's a lot to find there. You can also limit your search to the Revolutionary War era material, the Freedmen's Bank, and the U.S. serial set. And here you can see you can break down you can limit your search to books and put in the name of the person you're looking for, the place they may have lived. So I did a search for Thomas Stanton in Heritage Quest to compare Heritage Quest to American Ancestors. And here you can put in the place name as well. And I found 256 results, whereas on American Ancestors I found 11 results. I don't think all 256 results on Heritage Quest are for the Thomas Stanton I was looking for. So you can see how it helps to have a more limited returns, but you may find more in Heritage Quest. It's always good to check multiple databases for your ancestors. And here, like American Ancestors, you can click and see the pages from the book where the person's mentioned, and you can print as well. And here you can see a citation as well, and you can see you can click on the links to the different parts of the book. So that's a nice feature. And this is another page where you can see the title page of the book. So Ellis Island has a great database of which you can search for passengers. You can do this from anywhere. You have internet access. Find My Past is a paid subscription database that is great for people with British and Irish ancestors. So also has records from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South Africa, and I believe and the United States and other parts of the Commonwealth. It's 98 million hand-curated records spanning over 400 years of migration, including passenger lists, naturalization applications, draft registrations, census records, birth, marriage, and death records. And those census records from the US as well as Britain and other Commonwealth countries. Not all of the Commonwealth countries, though. So they also have they've broken it down into a British and Irish roots collection. So you can see that they have records grouped by passengers leaving the United Kingdom, US passport applications, naturalization petitions, World War I draft registration cards, and so on. And here's an example of a ship passenger record that I found in Find My Past. Was able to save to my computer and print the page and save the electronic record. And it's good to check the passenger lists. You never know who else might have come over, or if your ancestor may have traveled with other family members. They also may have traveled with friends. Like my grandfather traveled from Scotland on the ship with a friend that my father would call uncle, so it was a close family friend. So you can get other familial connections. Here's free resources that you can find on Find My Past. The U.S. Census from 1790 to 1940. Irish Roman Catholic parish records. They have 7 million baptism records. 1881 England, Wales, and Scotland census records. You see U.S., Canada birth records, marriage and death records, including Texas divorce records and New Jersey death records. They are also trying to build the biggest collection of American Catholic records. I can't tell you how many records they have for that, but they do have many already. Find My Past also has 1.8 billion Australian and New Zealand records, and they group the records by type, armed forces and conflict, census, land and survey records, churches and religion, education and work, institutions and organizations. We also have, they group them by life events or birth, death, and marriage records, newspapers, directories, and social history. Over 25 million records from the 1820s to the 1990s, including government gazettes, which were like, when the government would publish an announcement, they would send it out to the towns and post them at the post office or the local town hall or saloon in the pre-electronic era. And they have lots of travel and migration records. Fold 3 is another great database that we provide access to of military records of not just the US, but also of Britain and Canada. I like that you can search for your ancestor by conflict era. So they've broken the records down into Revolutionary War, War of 1812, Mexican-American and early Indian Wars, the Civil War, Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, and so on. So that's great. Ancestry does provide, Library Edition does provide access to military records, but there's some overlap, but I believe Fold 3 has many more military records than Ancestry Library Edition. Jewish Data is another genealogical database we provide access to. They've photographed Jewish cemeteries across the US, Montreal, across Europe and Israel. And they've also digitized Jewish data records, books, and so on. Myheritage is another genealogy database that we provide access to. We've had this for 3 or 4 years, I think. The Morris County Library at Maine was providing access to all the libraries in the system for a while. It's like Ancestry, it provides access to international records, but not the same for the same countries, or sometimes just not for the same years. So it is good to check both it as well as the other genealogical databases. And I suggest to people that they do the advanced search, which that's in blue on the top of my screen, roughly below the G and the E in heritage. I found I had better luck with that than doing the basic search. So Myheritage has census and voter lists, family trees, birth, marriage and death, military records, immigration and travel records, books and publications, and public records. They also have records for schools and universities, directories, guides and references, and so on. I mentioned Soldiers and Sailors database earlier. This is a National Park Service database of Union and Confederate soldiers and sailors. So as you can see, you can do a search for, you type in your ancestor's name, and then results come up. So I did a search for a Morristown Civil War veteran. His name was Hayward Emmel. And he spelled Hayward Heyward. Well, Soldiers and Sailors database didn't find it under Hayward Emmel. They had misspelled his name, as you might think Hayward would be spelled Hayward. So keep that in mind when you're doing searching for your ancestors, that spelling of names changes or their errors could be made, especially in the transcription of handwritten records, especially when people whose first language might not be English. But so that's the way we've still found Hayward Emmel here. It tells you that the regiment he served in, it was the Union and the company and a private. So it provides you with some information. It also provides you with a file number, which I believe you'd have to contact the National Archives to retrieve the record for the file number for more information on Hayward Emmel. But you could also search fold 3 for Hayward Emmel. So when anyone's doing their genealogy, one of the key resources they should be relying on are the census. Census records, as I've mentioned earlier, can be found in Ancestry Library Edition, Heritage Quest, and Myheritage. You can use, Boone Public Library card holders can use Heritage Quest from home. Morristown and Morris Township Library card holders can search Myheritage from home as well. The census, the first colonial census in New Jersey was taken in 1726, and then they were done in 1737, 38, 45, and 1772. And then, as you can imagine, there wasn't one done for several years. The first state census of New Jersey was taken in 1798, and several followed in 1855, 75, 85, 1895, 1905, 1915. Ancestry has, I believe, more than the 1895 now, but not everyone. The 1800 to 1810 census has columns for ages of residence, i.e. under 10, 10 to 16, 16 to 26. All others, that was listed in William Dollarhide's book, The Census Book, as all other free persons, slaves, and remarks. Note that the New Jersey portion of the 1800 and 1810 federal censuses are missing or were destroyed. The 1820 census has a column for foreigners not naturalized, agriculture, commerce, manufacturers, free, colored, and slaves. So over the years, the census has changed, and it's an interesting way to study the history of the country. You could look and see what questions the government asked, so what information they wanted to know. So in the 1830 census was the first to ask if there were any deaf or dumb people that lived at home. And then in 1850 was the first census to ask the occupation, the value of your real estate, your birthplace, whether you were married within the year, whether you went to school within the year, if you can read or write, can't read or write, and the enumeration, provided the enumeration date. In 1870, the federal census lists race, colored, lists white, black, mulatto, Chinese, and Indian, and so on. Here, it also says constitutional relations, male citizens of U.S. of 21 years of age and upwards, and in the second column, male citizens of U.S. of 21 years of age and upwards whose right to vote is denied on other grounds than rebellion or other crime. And there's no column for the relationship to head of household. So here in 1880 was the first census to ask for the relationship to the head of household, the marital status, and if married in census year. There was a column for miscellaneous information. And this was the first to ask for place of birth of father and mother. The 1890 census was almost totally destroyed by fire. 1900 was the first census to ask if the person can speak English and asked if they resided at a farm or in a house. And here is a page of the 13th Census of the United States, the 1910 census. By 1920, the census asked if the resident is a veteran, whether they're a naturalized citizen, alien, or had papers pending. The 1930 census asked the value of home or monthly rental, if home had a radio, and it was the first census to list Mexican and Japanese in the race column. It also distinguishes between English and French Canadian and Irish Free State and Northern Ireland. Then in 1940, there was a supplementary questions box at the bottom of the page. The first box is for their name. The second box is for the birthplace of the father and mother. It also asks what the mother tongue was and asked the language spoken at home at earliest childhood. There's a column for veterans, for wife, widow, or under 18-year-old child of a veteran. Then there's under Social Security, does this person have one? Were deductions made for federal old age insurance or railroad retirement? If no, were deductions made from all or one half of wages? And then lists usual occupation, industry, and class of worker. So the federal censuses are released to the public, the population censuses. So the ones with individuals' names on them, 72 years after the census was collected. So hopefully in 2022, we'll have access to the 1950 census. More on the 1940 census, we have a list of AKITA abbreviations, which include race. Again, the value of home owned gathered for apartment dwellers as well. They were to estimate the value of the portion they owned. The 1940 races with abbreviations, they listed them as white, Negro, Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Filipino, Hindu, Korean, and other races were to be spelled out. Abbreviations for citizenship of foreign born, naturalized, having first papers, alien, American citizen born abroad. Other abbreviations, class of worker, wage or salary worker in private work, wage or salary worker in government work, so on. And then also war or military service. World War, Spanish-American War, Philippine insurrection, or Boxer Rebellion were all lumped together. Regular establishment, Army, Navy, or Marine Corps, or peacetime service only. And then there was an other war or expedition. There's also lists education, highest grade completed. I believe it's the first one to list college first to fourth year and college fifth or subsequent year. And age at the last birthday. For toddlers, i.e. someone born in April 1939, is listed as 11/12. So city directories are another great resource for genealogists. The North Jersey History and Genealogy Center has a collection of city directories from across the state and Manhattan and Kings County. We've digitized the Morris County directories from 1897 to 1909 and the Morristown city directories from 1885 to 1982. City directories were precursors to phone books. So they list, in the early years, they just list the person's name and where they resided. Then they list where they worked. And then eventually they'll list their spouse. Later in the 30s, and I believe it's in the 30s and 40s, they start to list if there are adult children living at home, they may be listed as boarders. So those, and they list they list where the person worked. So that's a valuable research tool, especially if you can't find, in 1930, you found your ancestor in the census in one place, and then you go and check in 1940, and they're not still in the same place. If you could check city directories, you'll find where you may find when they moved and where they moved. City directories also occasionally will list beside a person's name are removed to and tell you where. And the odd time I've seen died with a certain date. So again, they're a valuable resource. And here's a page from Morristown City Directory from 1912 to 1913. And you can see they list businesses as well. And there are advertisements in city directories. We have a great collection of newspapers on microfilm, and we have digitized several of our Morris County newspapers from the mid-1800s to the late 1800s. The Jerseyman was the paper of record for Morris County from its beginning in the 1824. Near its end, we've digitized November 8, 1849 through November 28, 1930. We have other reels for other dates on microfilm. So we allow patrons to access the microfilm if they don't see the digital version, or if they can't make a good copy from the digital version. Other Morris County newspapers that we've digitized are the True Democratic Banner, which ran, as you can see, for a long time. The digital versions are from 1849 to 1917. The Madison Journal, the Morris County Chronicle, and the Stanhope Eagle. And here's a screenshot of the digital version of the front page of the Jerseyman from May 30th, 1902. We did a search for somebody named, last name Bushnell. And here's an obituary for Thomas Bushnell. One thing that continues to surprise me, well, maybe doesn't surprise me, but people will ask for an obituary for their ancestor. Not that I had too many wealthy ancestors, but regular Joe Blow often does not get an obit anytime before 1900. You have to be a person of some wealth or notoriety to get an obit in the paper prior to 1900. Often their death notices, which is so-and-so died at their home on X. And they might say funeral at this date, and that's it. But it's getting close to 1900 and after, you see obits for more people and a wider range of class, and longer obits. So we have the Daily Morristown Daily Record from 1900 to present on microfilm. We have obituary indexes from at least 1930 up to the present for the Daily Record. Those are bound and on a ready reference shelf. We have the New York Times on microfilm from 1851 to 2012. The Newark Evening News, which was the paper of record for northern New Jersey from much of its existence. We have it from 1883 to 1945. Unfortunately, a vendor increased the costs greatly, so we're not able to complete the run. That newspaper, for those of you who don't know, ended in 1972. Newark Public Library's Charles F. Cummings New Jersey Information Center has a complete run of the Newark, or a near complete run of the Newark Evening News, as does, I believe, the State Library. We have indexes for our Morris County newspapers, a number of them. Death notices copied from newspapers published in Morristown from 1798 to 1849. A death notice index to the Jerseyman, True Democratic Banner, the Morris County Chronicle from 1849 to 1899. The Genius of Liberty, another old New Jersey newspaper, indices from 1798 to 1804, 1806 to 1810, 1810 to 1811, and the Morristown Herald from 1811 to 1812. We also have indexes to another early federal newspaper, the Palladium of Liberty, from 1810 to roughly 1827, not every year in between. We have this 4-volume set titled Morristown Obituaries. These are actual obituaries that were copied from the newspapers, typed into these 4 volumes in alphabetical order. The obituaries were for people that lived in Morristown at one time or another, not necessarily at the time they died. Generally, these are for more people of standing or famous people, to use another word that gets overused. From 1818 to 1941. We have marriage notices in Morristown newspapers from 1849 to 1899, and marriage notices in the Jerseyman from 1900 to 1909. News and indices to the Daily Record from 1993 to 2004. Death notices from the Daily Record from 1930 to 1939. A Daily Record obituary index from 1935 and 1937 to 2011. The Morristown Topics, which was a societal paper, but has good local flavor articles, local history articles from 1920 to 1926. Family files. These are one of our most valuable resources in our department. I say valuable in that they are the ones that they're unique to us. Each family file is unique to us, not that all the material in the files are unique to us, but the collection is unique to us. We have family files for families from Morris, Sussex, Hunterdon, Somerset, and Warren counties. These files consist of obituaries, requests from people who provided information that we may not have had elsewhere in their letter, notes, copies of Bible records, birth, marriage, and death notices, and some pictures. And there is a list to that, and I'll show you how to find that list of family files on our website. We have family histories, as I mentioned earlier, 42 shelves from Reverend Abiel Abbott of Peterborough, New Hampshire, to the Zabriskie family, 301-year history of the descendants of Albrecht Zaborowski, 1638 to 1711 of Bergen County, New Jersey. Also included on these shelves are family newsletters. We have a great collection of manuscript materials, and included in those collections are family archives. We have 32 family and personal papers, manuscript collections from the Frank D. Abel papers from 1901 to 1968 to the Wise family papers from 1832 to 1943. Included in the Wise family papers are 3 or 4 volumes of Colonel Joseph Wise's Civil War diary. Wise was a colonel in the Confederate Army from a Virginia regiment. One of his descendants moved to Morristown and gave us his diaries. We've digitized them. They're an interesting study of the war from a Southern viewpoint. We have family trees. We have 60 family trees and charts from the Adams family to the Walsh family. There is a list of the family trees and charts on the website. I will show you shortly how to find them. Church histories. We have a number of Morristown and Morris County church histories, 8 pages of results in the online card catalog for Morristown churches, and 3 pages of results for Morris County Church. So those are other churches from other Morris County municipalities and other denominations that there are 3 pages of titles. We also have St. Peter's Episcopal Church directories, and that's St. Peter's Episcopal Church right across the street from the library. 1971, 1976, and 1978. The First Baptist Church of Morristown collection from 1752 to 1985. So chances are, if you had colonial ancestors in Morristown, they either attended the Presbyterian Church or they attended the Baptist Church. Here we have an important resource by one of my predecessors, Barbara Hoskins, Morris County Churches, 18th and 19th century. And this lists the date of the organization of the church and listing of vital records and cemetery records available in the library in the North Jersey History and Genealogy Center. We also have Mrs. Tone's scrap album, clippings about Presbyterian churches, etc. by a Dover resident. Then we have Carl Scherzer wrote an early Jewish history of Morristown. It's a self-published volume that was published in 1977, which lists dates, familial relations, and addresses of the individuals mentioned. However, he did not list his resources. We have several books on Morristown's Evergreen Cemetery, a collection of cemetery records from Morris County, copies of gravestone inscriptions, death notices, obituaries, draft records, etc. We also have Who's Who in the Whippany Burying Yard. That is reputedly the oldest, it is the oldest cemetery in Morris County. It was called a burying yard because the word cemetery wasn't used when that cemetery was created or began. The inscribed records of Flanders United Methodist Church Cemetery, Flanders Presbyterian Church Cemetery, and Flanders Hillside Cemetery is marked. Civil War veterans' graves at Old and New Trinity Episcopal Church cemeteries, Bethesda Methodist Church Cemetery, St. Joseph's Church Cemetery, and Lake Park Cemetery. We also have indexed record of interments at Greenwood Cemetery in Boonton from 1872 to 1965. Denville Cemetery from 1776 to 1995. And for some reason, we have Good Luck Churchyard and Cemetery in Ocean County, New Jersey. Mount Sinai Hebrew Cemetery in Randolph, and many, many more, particularly from New York State and some from Massachusetts. And many of those, I'm afraid, are on microfiche. Now we have a big map collection, as I noted earlier, and we have many maps that show family names. This is the 1887 page of the 1887 Robinson Atlas of Morris County, which we have digitized and you can view on our website, or if you visit us, you're welcome to view in person. And I'll show you where to access the digital version. And you'll be able to see many property holders listed on this map. We have a 267 box collection of land titles and deeds collected by a former title estate researcher and lawyer, Henry W. Pilch. That collection has over 1 million documents. We have a finding aid. He did plat maps, collected information on families, so there are family files. We plotted land from across Morris County and dating back to the Revolutionary era up to the 1970s or 80s. Some deeds at Washington's headquarters in Morristown by Henry Pilch. Morris County deeds copied or abstracted by Canfield, Garrettson, and others. Approximate dates 1750 to 1840. Fortunately, Barbara Hoskins compiled an index to this collection in 1970. So deeds are, sure most of you know, the paperwork for sales of property, land and houses. And here is an example of one of the copies of the deeds. James Wood and his wife, and Elizabeth, his wife, to John Robinson of Hanover. See the other information. Here's another deed. David Pier's deed to John Pier. Other land records, we have land titles, Morris County, and some unrecorded deeds collected by Edward Howell. This has a name index. Morris County heirs to estates from 1785 to 1900 by Virginia Almond Brown, and this book also has an index. The Morris County, New Jersey deeds. Sadly, this book does not have a name index. Morris County Road Returns, Book A, 1760 to 1795. Barbara Hoskins compiled a name index for this volume. Road returns were when landowners decided they wanted a road to be built from their property so they could get into town or go elsewhere. So a surveyor came and describes the land and where the width of the road and the road's going to begin X, and like I hope some of you have seen some colonial era surveys, 6 chain links from the White Oak over to the 4 links over to the big rock boulder at the corner of John Smith and Mr. Howe's property, for example. And I've copied a page, however, the copy just doesn't look good, but it'll provide you with a good description of the property your ancestor owned, might give you a hint as to who their neighbors were, who their family were. As you know, often family members would subdivide properties, so you'd see several family members living next to each other. And you can see many names listed at the bottom of this third road return on the page there. And again, this book is for 1760 to 1795. Other resources we have, local history books from across the state. So we're especially strong with Morris County, Sussex County, and Warren County. So we have more books on those municipalities, the churches within those municipalities, the cemeteries within those municipalities. But we also have books on the entire state, from other parts of the state, and on the entire state. We have vertical files, so the collections of newspaper articles, maybe letters, magazine articles, pamphlets on Morristown, Morris County, other municipalities in Morris County, and the state as a whole. We have a great photograph collection, 7,000 photographs by an insurance photographer, Frederick R. Curtis. There's a couple of YouTube videos that the archivist has put together, and if you go to the library's YouTube channel, you can watch these short videos describing the Curtis collection. I post regularly photographs from Frederick Curtis to the library's Facebook page. As an insurance photographer, he photographed accidents, buildings, but he also photographed families and individuals. It's a great collection of photographs from roughly 1890 to 1940, but we also have photographs from across the county, but particularly Morristown and Morris Township over the course of the history of photography, although really the late 1800s is the earliest ones we have from Curtis and other photographers up until the staff continues to photograph changes in town. We have genealogical publications with the northeastern states as well as Virginia and Maryland. So online resources to check. Annie's going to share with you a number of the links, and I'm going to attempt now to show you the Morris County Clerk's Office's digitized land records. Bear with me here. I had the website open. No such luck. Okay. Do you see Ann F. Grossi, Esquire, Office of the Morris County Clerk on your screen?
Yes, now we do.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so here you put in so this only helps when you know the landholder's name. You can't just put in, 1 Miller Road, Morristown, New Jersey, and find all the land records pertaining to that property. But if, you bought your house from, you know who you bought your house from, so you can put in their name, and then you could go backwards and see if you want to see who else owned the house. So you'd have to keep looking at the different deeds, but that's what you can do. And you can do that. They have digitized land records back to 1964. And for earlier records, you need to visit the Morris County Hall of County Clerk's Office, the Hall of Records there on Court Street, in between Ann Street and Washington Avenue there, where you can go back further to I'm not sure what the earliest deed they have, but you can do that there, and you can make copies of the deeds there if you want. They have a good map collection as well, so that's a great place to look for land records of your Morris County ancestors. And so there's also the early land records of New Jersey. I'm not going to go to that link now, but that's a project by the State Archives, and they've done a great job. I encourage you to, should you be looking for early ancestors in New Jersey, search their land records. And now, other New Jersey institutions with good New Jersey genealogy collections: the Rutgers University Special Collections and Archives in New Brunswick at the Alexander Library. The New Jersey Historical Society has especially for northern New Jersey and the eastern part of northern New Jersey at 52 Park Place in Newark. The Charles F. Cummings New Jersey Information Center, Newark Public Library, 5 Washington Street, Newark. They have a great collection on the entire state. If you're looking for your 1900s and on ancestors, particularly in Essex County, the Charles F. Cummings New Jersey Information Center is a good place to check, particularly through the Newark Evening News newspapers. They have biographical indices that list articles and obituaries, but not death notices from 1914 through 1972 of that paper. The Plainfield Public Library has a good local history collection, as does the Jersey City Public Library's New Jersey Room. Now, I'd like to, if you have time, just take you through the department's website so you can see how to search our collections. Okay, so you click on the tab here, you scroll to the right, you see History and Genealogy, and I'm putting my finger over my mouse, and then the drop-down menu appears. So you see Digital Collections, you click on the Digital Collections, and here's a panoramic picture of the Morristown Green, taken roughly from where Epstein's used to be, and now the condos, the Cadoba restaurant at the corner there of Park and Bank Street. So other collections we've digitized a portion of our Thomas Nast collection. Here's the Curtis photograph collection that I mentioned. You click on the link and there's a photograph from the collection. You click browse this collection to see more. We have a photograph album from Greystone Park, circa 1899. We've digitized oral histories we did for a African-American oral history project the oral histories were done in the 80s and into the early 90s, and the library published a book, Setting Up Our Own City, which is included in this page here if you click on the link. And if you were to want, you could listen to the oral histories. If you were to do that for especially the African-American histories, you have to crank the volume way up since they were recorded many of them recorded in the 80s, it was hard to get a good reproduction. But we also did a Irish American oral history project in the 1990s, into the late 90s and 2000s, and published a book, Ordinary Days, Extraordinary Times, A History of Morristown's Irish Immigrant Community. And here is a Lucille Hobby, a Morris County, a former Morris County resident who illustrated historic Morris County sites. We have a big collection of her original artwork. I don't know if any of you are familiar with her work, but she illustrated, again, historic sites, but some of them multiple times from different angles or different seasons. So if you listen to the oral histories, you click on browse. And when we could find a picture of related to the person that was interviewed, we put that beside as the description of the interview. And supposing you were interested in the Ayers Sisters interview, you click on the Ayers Sisters interview and then you click play. And you can read a description of it if you liked below. Fortunately, the sound is much better on the Irish American oral histories. I'm just going to go back again. On page 2 are some of our digitized historic maps. So we have a collection of historical maps of the greater Morris area. Again, you just click on this map here. Was illustrated by Louisa McCullough, George McCullough's wife, back in 1812. This is one of our oldest maps, original maps, I should say. And I'm not sure why it's not coming up. But here also you see a map of the Morris and Essex Railroad, 1835, a plan of the town spot of Morristown, an aerial view of the north central section of Morris Township from 1969 to 1970, and Lake Apacong map of building sites, 1981. You scroll down the page, there's a wide range of years represented and parts of Morris County represented there. I see the 1868 Beers Atlas, the 1887 Robinson Atlas, which lists property holders, as does Beers Atlas lists some property holders. And the 1910 Mueller Atlas of Morris County also lists property holders. We're also fortunate to have a big collection of artwork of A.B. Frost, who lived on Treadwell in the convent section of the township. A.B. Frost illustrated Brer Rabbit for Joel Chandler Harris, he illustrated many, many books. We have a big collection of his books, and then original artwork. Outdoor sporting scenes was his primary area of expertise or subject. Then there's the Lucille Hobby collection. As you know, Lucille Hobby was a Boonton resident. And here's one of hers that you could compare to that panoramic picture of the green. This is one of, she did there are 4 of these of the green from different vantage points of the green that she did. Anyway, so there's that. Now, if I'm gonna go back, that's our digital collections. I go back to our main page here. You see research materials at the North Jersey History and Genealogy Center. If you want, you can click on Bible record transcripts, birth, marriage, and death record sources. I mentioned earlier family charts and trees. Click on the link, and there's a list of all the families that we have charts for, not the family files. To find the family files, you have to scroll down this page, vertical files on Morris County surnames. You click on it, and there's a 45-page document here of families from A to Z. So at this point, I'm go back to the presentation. Happy to answer any questions you might have. I'm just going to show you this is best way to reach me right now. I don't know when the North Jersey History and Genealogy Center or the rest of the library is going to be open to the public. The best way to reach me is by email. I check my email regularly, so I'm happy to answer any questions I can answer. I will be happy to help you do research on your ancestors using our collections. Please bear in mind now that right now what's happening is we're at the members of the department are at the library a day a week, but we're there mostly to help provide curbside services. So we don't get much time to do our, what we regularly do, which is help people do their research on their families or New Jersey history. But again, we'd be happy to answer your questions if you need tips, or if we can search for you when we can our resources. We'd be happy to do that.
Well, thank you so much. This was an amazing. I had no idea there was that much stuff out there, and I had really no idea how rich the Morristown library collection was. I mean, that is an incredible depth to it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's that is just really quite astonishing, and I'm assuming that you're still working on whatever projects you're looking to accomplish. Is there anything right now that you're working on?
Yes. I'm reviewing. We're reviewing 80 to 90 oral histories and library programs that we had digitized recently. We have them on CD,
okay,
and we have electronic copies, and so we're checking those to make sure they're audible, or as audible as we think it's reasonable to expect. Oral histories that were done 20, 30, 40 years ago. But that's been interesting. We're working on with COVID-19, this is kind of hard, but
Sure.
we've been working on an exhibit on women of Morris County, given that this is the 100th anniversary of women getting
Women's
the right
suffrage.
to vote.
Yep.
Suffrage. We're so we're working on that. Had there not been COVID, that exhibit would be up the week after Labor Day through the end of the year. And we'd be, getting close to editing texts and getting ready to print up the photo images we'd use and so on.
Sure. Yeah,
we've got to figure out a way to do that.
Sure.
And we're otherwise, that's what we're working on now. There's always something, and always happy to receive new materials, family histories, photograph collections of Morris County. We have a great collection, I should have mentioned, postcards of New Jersey from across the state. As some of you may know, those were really popular in the 1880s, 90s to 1920, and even really into the 60s, I'd say. But many of ours are from 1880s to the 1930s, with some later than that.
Anybody else has any questions? I see that there's some microphones that are open.
Well, I have, this is a very personal question. Our family is not from New Jersey. It was Pennsylvania. They're Pennsylvania Dutch.
Okay.
And I had an aunt who in probably the 1960s, 50s, whatever, she did a whole big thing. Search of the genealogy of the family. And so my sister took it and put it onto like this family tree. While you were talking, I looked at it, sort of like she gave me a print of whatever she had done. And this aunt ended up getting into the DAR because we had supposedly people, and I have their names, who one was a revolutionary fifer, and the other one carried the Liberty Bell, supposedly, from Philadelphia to Allentown. My mother's name was Nicholas, and my father's name was Dieterle, which is a very common German name. But the way they spelled Dieterle, they Americanized it for some reason, somewhere along the line. So it's its own little weird spelling. So my question is twofold. One, since it's in Pennsylvania, do I have to get databases from Pennsylvania, like Philadelphia? And
so
go on.
You can search. There are Pennsylvania records on Ancestry, on Myheritage, on Family Search, a free one that I didn't mention. We have a big collection of books on Pennsylvania. We have a big collection of. I mentioned early that we have books on the original 13 states. We have a few from the Midwest, but we have many from Pennsylvania. We have the Pennsylvania archives, the Colonial published volumes of the Colonial records of Pennsylvania, and we have many books on New York State as well, from across the state. But so search those databases for the Pennsylvania records. There are some there. I don't know for sure that you're going to find your person. You might find something in fold 3, given that your ancestor was a fifer in the Revolutionary War.
I must say, once when I was a kid, I went to our library and I did find a book. The name of the family is Nickley, and I did find a reference to it in this book. So I do think it's true. But so the Mickleys, those people, those were the revolutionary people. They ended up, somebody in that family married the Dieterles with the weird spelling, And so and what's not on my aunt's chart is going back with the Dieterles and how they got to Philadelphia. I mean, apparently everybody kind of came in the 1750s, as far as I can tell. They were farmers, and and instead of coming to Ellis Island, they came to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
On my mom's side, I actually have the name of a ship in 1741 that her family came from. From Prussia is what it says on this chart.
Sure.
You know, that was my second question. How do I get ship records to like substantiate that? And then can I go back to Europe and figure out where they came from in Europe?
Okay, so we have a number of, there's a publication called Internet Genealogy and your genealogy, Moorhead Publishing, they publish those titles. They published a series of how to do your various ethnic group ancestors, and we have them, and some of the issues include more than one country, but there's one on German ancestors, or one that's included covering German ancestors. You should also contact the Pennsylvania Historical Society in Philadelphia. I heard you say Allentown earlier. I'm told that the Easton I know Easton's not quite Allentown, but the Easton Public Library has a good local history collection. You should try there. To go back to Europe, there is a German emigrant museum and database or website for that museum and archive out of Hamburg. I want to say it's out of Hamburg. But if you do a search for German emigrant museum, you can get it. There are English versions of the website, of the pages on that website. So you can try there. There's a gentleman with the last name Beetle. Oh. If you send me an email, I will send you a link to I'll send you some tips. I'm blanking out on the man's name, but there's a great genealogist who has German ancestors and published a book that we acquired recently on German immigrants and maps of Germany and the old German states that made up Germany in 1861. I'll be happy to recommend him once I find his name and share the title of that book with you.
Well, it's also a nice opportunity for an excursion to Hamburg. It's a nice town.
Right?
When coronavirus is behind us.
When we can leave the country.
Well, that's that too, of course.
Right.
I have a question, and you answered all my German questions, so thank you for that inadvertently. But I work for Church of the Redeemer in Morristown.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And you know, we have a lot of old registries, and we have all kinds of information that may or may not be of interest to somebody like you. So is there a way for us to digitize that safely? I mean, we can't take the oldest register and put it on the copier because it would just shred, it would disintegrate. So are there suggestions to sort of digitize that information so that it is available for people?
Okay. I don't know what kind of shape your records are in. It sounds like if you're afraid to put it on the copier.
Yeah, the older ones are definitely are literally disintegrating. So.
Yeah, You could photograph them
Mhm.
with a digital camera. There are organizations that do this sort of work. It's kind of expensive. I
Right.
don't know how many records you have.
We have 9 registers.
Okay.
Books. We go back to 1852, at least with this church configuration.
You know, I would be either myself or the archivist would be happy to have a look at your registers and give you some recommendations.
Okay.
It would
So
be
we'll-
easier,
All right.
easier to do so.
Okay,
do
so
so.
when we're sort of back and can get in person, then that's something we can be in touch with you about, that you could take a look at them.
Yes.
All right, yeah, because I think it's some history there, and we have some photos and, things like that. It would be nice to have it saved somewhere in the event of anything happening to them, obviously.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, oh, great, thank you.
Feel free to send me an email. Check out the library website for information on when we'll be open. Of course, there's nothing up there now, but send me an email. I'll be happy to answer and
Okay.
get back to you. I'll answer right away, but or relatively soon after you email me. And when I know when we're going to be open to the public, or when I know when we'll be at work more than once a day a week, we'll be happy to work with you.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Sessions.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Sandra.
All right, this was so interesting. Thank you so much. I learned an awful lot, and I feel like jumping right in and finding all about my family. So thank you so much, and really, bless you for doing this. And I think you have put a bee in everybody's bonnet that we're now going to go out there and research. So thank
Great.
you very much.
You're welcome.
This was wonderful. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank
So
you very much.
bye, everybody. Thank you again.
Have a
Thank
good
you for
night.
coming. Have a good night. Stay safe out there.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
You too, all.
Thank you.